Hello and welcome to Talk of the Bay for today, October 14th. I'm your host, George Cadman, and I'm very excited to be talking about Prop 50 today on the program, which is a legislative constitutional amendment on the November 4th, 2025 special election ballot that would temporarily replace congressional district maps for elections from 2026 to 2030. The measure was placed on the ballot by the California State Legislature in response to what proponents call, quote, election rigging by Republicans in states like Texas. And joining me to talk about this today is Jenni Veitch-Olson. She is a compassionate community leader and the Director of Development for Emerge California, the premier training program for Democratic women who want to run for office and win. She served as the Vice Chair of Santa Cruz County Democratic Central Committee prior to being elected the chair in January 2025. She also serves as a Watsonville Planning Commissioner. In 2024, Jenni was awarded Santa Cruz County's Democrat of the Year for her mobilization of resources to those affected by the Pajaro River flood. Known as Deaf Jen Wreckers on the track, Jenni plays roller derby with the local Santa Cruz roller derby team, and I'm very grateful that Jenni Veitch-Olson is here to speak with me today about Prop 50. Welcome to Talk of the Bay, Jenni.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me, George.
Of course. So why don't we start out by, if you could elaborate on what I said about Prop 50 already, because I gave a very brief description of it. Can you tell us more about it?
Absolutely. So Proposition 50 is a statewide ballot initiative that is directly a result of what the Trump administration has started doing in terms of election rigging nationwide. And it's California's very targeted and practical response to that effort. And so what we're doing is we have redrawn the congressional district maps, and the congressional district maps only, not the state legislature maps. And we've redrawn them mid-cycle in order to allow for 5 more Democratic seats in the state of California. And this is a direct response to what Trump and Texas Republicans have already put into effect without voters having any say.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I think it's very important to kind of talk about, and we can tease this out a little bit more, about how, because this is a ballot proposition, that all voters in the state of California will have the opportunity to weigh in on whether or not these congressional district maps should change and will have their say in going forward and responding to what the administration is doing.
So the California State Legislature could have simply redrawn these maps with no voice from the voters, as you're saying has happened in other states. Is that right?
Absolutely. So that's what happened in Texas. The governor simply said, we're redrawing the maps, and put it through executive order, and it never went to the voters in the state of Texas. Same thing is currently happening in Missouri, and there are other Republican-led states that are most likely going to do the same thing. So here in California, we're doing it differently. It is going to the voters, and the voters will have the final say on whether or not these district maps go through. And by doing that, we are giving voters power and keeping, our redistricting efforts representative and participatory through the electoral process.
So one of the arguments in favor of Prop 50, and we'll get around to some of the counter arguments and allow you the opportunity to rebut those in a little while here. And of course, listeners will be welcome to call in at 5:30 at 831-900-5773 if you would like to challenge anything that's said here or ask a question of my guest. This is being presented as leveling the playing field, and you've already addressed that to some degree, but can you talk a little bit more about that, elaborate on that? It's going to add 5 new congressional seats if it passes, assuming these would likely be Democrats that would get elected, given that's the goal, right? Is to get more Democrats into U.S. Congress.
Yes, absolutely. And so the way that this levels the playing field is we're looking at it nationwide. And so yes, California will temporarily change our boundaries to make it easier to elect more Democrats in the next year's election. And this will make the situation more fair on the national level and hopefully prevent Republicans from rigging the entire system in order to keep unlimited power for Trump for at least 2 more years. And so what we're hoping to do is make these new maps that will elect Democrats in these new districts. And I think we have an absolutely critical opportunity with these new districts to bring new representation that is actually a better representation for the state of California to these congressional areas. Mm-hmm. And so it's not going to happen overnight, but over the cycle of congressional elections, because it's every 2 years, and so they're kind of constantly running, that we will see different candidates and more representative candidates from the great state of California.
But then to be clear, it would expire in 2030, correct? And it would return to the current state of affairs?
Yes, absolutely. The emergency maps expire in 2030, and the Citizens Redistricting Commission would take up their job again following the census and reevaluate the maps. And, we don't know what would happen at that time.
Okay. You said that this Prop 50 is a response to Republicans trying to rig the entire system or rigging the entire system. And we're looking, this is coming, obviously, the special election is meant to, plan for the midterm elections. So give more detail on how Republicans are rigging the entire system. I mean, I think a lot of our listeners know quite a few things about this, but if you could expand on that a little bit, how they're rigging the entire system and how this is a good counterbalance to it beyond the 5 congressional seats it would add.
Right. So, what we're seeing now is certainly the Texas example, just executive order, make more Republican seats so that the Republicans can, fill the House of Representatives and keep their majority. But they're also rigging the system by putting loyalists into positions of power and demanding ultimate and unilateral loyalty, and completely overlooking all of our checks and balances, quite literally. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this is very concerning because we're even talking about overlooking the judiciary and kind of the ultimate backstop of the check and balance system, the way that our democracy is set up. And so really, we, the Democrats, are looking for ways that we can fight fire with fire and fight back. And we believe that this mid-cycle redistricting is a fair and proportional response to what the MAGA Republicans are doing. And it actually gives us a fighting chance to have that representation and to stop what's happening nationwide through the House of Representatives.
Yeah, there's also the Supreme Court and the gutting of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. I just saw a news article today about how a couple of years ago the Supreme Court narrowly preserved the 1965 Voting Rights Act, but that there are signals from justices, conservative justices now, that point to a potential reversal and suggest a looming retrenchment of this landmark civil rights law. So it's not just in Congress. We're dealing with all branches of government at the moment. They're not satisfied they won't be satisfied just to have the Senate and the presidency and the Supreme Court and all that. They want it all, including the U.S., the House of Representatives. So my next question was going to be, is this fighting fire with fire? But you already answered my question because you said exactly those words. So what does it look like? Is it looking good for Prop 50? Or are there polls? I actually haven't looked at any polling on this.
So the polling before the proposition made it to the ballot was positive, and it looked quite strong. And so that is partially why the governor brought this forward and brought it forward to the ballot, and here we are today. I can tell you that in Santa Cruz County, early ballot returns are incredibly strong, and so that is hopefully good news.
Not surprising.
But it's also encouraging because this is a special election. This is absolutely an off-year cycle. People are literally worn out and tired, and are they paying attention? I certainly hope so. And so hopefully that works to our favor, but I also will absolutely put a plug in for, we have about 3 more weeks until Election Day, and now is get out to vote time. All of our ballots have been received. Like, we have all of our ballots, so we need to fill them out and turn them in and participate in our democracy in California as we have the opportunity to.
What would you say to somebody who said, I don't know, I'm not sure about this. I've heard arguments on both sides. I feel confused, because there's a lot of information out there on the other side, which we'll get into in a minute. And they decide, I'm going to sit out this special election. I'm not sure about it. And also some people are just fed up with government generally. What would you say to somebody like that about Prop 50? If you were out tabling at the farmer's market or something and you were talking to people from the public and you encountered some folks like that, what would you say to them?
So I've had a few conversations with many people who do feel worn out and heavily discouraged. And what I tell them is that I hear where they're coming from and I acknowledge their feelings, and it's absolutely an extremely challenging time. And this special election is our opportunity to do something that matters. And our opportunity is to change these congressional districts so that we have more Democrats in the House of Representatives and that we have a fighting chance to stop this administration. And it's simply filling out your ballot and turning it in, and it's participating in democracy. And quite frankly, democracy is hanging on by a thread. And so let's participate right now while we still can. This is our time. Let's do it. It takes 30 seconds to fill out your ballot. So I don't think there are any
Democracy is hanging
excuses.
on by a thread. Can you elaborate on that? Democracy is hanging on by a thread. I mean, I think anybody who's paying attention is having this feeling. Unless they're delusional and listening to complete and total disinformation and misinformation, I can't imagine that there aren't many people out there feeling. I mean, you can't look at the news without seeing just on every level the attacks. But can you address that? Like, what do you mean democracy is hanging on by a thread?
Sure. I mean that people are losing their rights and at risk for losing their rights every single day, whether it's immigrants who are being unjustly targeted, whether it's LGBTQ plus people or trans people in particular who are literally losing their rights regarding their passports and their gender identities and their access to medical care. It's special education students. The Department of Education, the special education unit, I believe, was gutted yesterday. So special education students may no longer have access to their what were legally mandated services, and reproductive rights are at risk. So if you don't feel as though your rights are at risk, I think you're kind of grossly mistaken, because they're not going to stop. I think that this administration is coming after all of us. And so that's what I mean when I say that democracy is hanging on by a thread. We still have a few opportunities where we can do something to make change. And I think Proposition 50 is a big one. And so we need to fight for that. And we need to fight for ourselves, but we also need to fight for our community, and especially for those who cannot, vote and fight for themselves like many of us can.
What would you say to somebody who felt like it's fighting dirty and they're uncomfortable with that?
I would say that Trump and the Republicans don't fight fair, and they don't fight clean, and we know that. And so we need to recognize this and stop trying to play this "we're better than that" game, and we're not stooping to their level. MAGA, they are trying to steal these congressional seats in Texas and keep their majority. And we just cannot allow that to happen. There's no way to stop it without doing what we are doing with Prop 50. And California has the opportunity and also the ability to do this. Other states are not as fortunate as we are in terms of having population and, kind of the ability to lead the fight for change in this way. So I believe that this is a fair and proportional response to what the Republicans are doing nationwide.
Yeah, I kind of feel like if you're not a white, wealthy, cisgender, heterosexual male, that those of us who don't fall into that category are being beaten over the head with a stick all day, every day, is how I feel about
100%.
So, yeah. So I want to let folks know you're listening to Talk of the Bay here at KSQD 90.7 FM, 89.5 FM, and 89.7 FM in Prunedale, and also online at ksqd.org. I'm going to open the phone lines up in about 10 minutes so you can call in with questions and comments. That number 831-900-5773. That'll be at 5:30. And I'm your host, George Cadman. I'm speaking with Jenni Veitch-Olson, a compassionate community leader and the chair of the Santa Cruz County Democratic Central Committee. And we're talking about Proposition 50, which is on the ballot, and you should have received your ballot by now. Again, it's a legislative constitutional amendment on the November 4th, 2025 special election ballot that would temporarily replace congressional district maps for elections from 2026 to 2030 when it would expire. And again, the measure was placed on the ballot by the California State Legislature in response to what proponents call election rigging by Republicans in states like Texas and now Missouri. And it seems like other states sounds like planning to follow suit, Jenny?
Yes.
Republican-led states. All right. So I want to present some of the counter arguments and get your response to those. There is an article in Cal Matters on the Cal Matters website that is titled, "Does Prop 50 Divide California Communities? Depends on How You Measure It." And one of the comments is, "Isn't California already gerrymandered?" Their response, "Not quite. Many Republicans, including Vice President J.D. Vance, already complain that under California's current map, Democrats control over 80% of congressional seats, even though the party got just under 60% of statewide votes in the 2024 presidential election." And they say that doesn't necessarily mean the maps are intentionally drawn to give Democrats an unfair advantage. But apparently one of the critiques is that California is already gerrymandered. And I guess people think this would make it worse if they're favoring Republicans. Is that so? What would be your response to that?
Well, California has a Citizens Redistricting Commission, and the goal of the commission is to draw the the congressional districts so that they are representative and that we as Californians feel as though our maps are not gerrymandered. And so this idea of having an independent commission that makes the maps is something that many other states do as well. And, the people who are on these commissions are everyday Californians. And so we empower them to do the work of redistricting. It's not easy. It can't be easy. But that is how we as a state have chosen to make our lines. And so I think either side can complain as much as they want about, are the lines fair? Who are they really helping and supporting? But when it comes down to it, this is an independent citizen redistricting commission that draws the lines. And then we as voters participate in voting for our representatives.
So another thing that's stated in this Cal Matters article is that the current map gets a B score on partisan fairness from Princeton University's gerrymandering project, but the proposed new map that would be used with Prop 50 gets an F from the organization. So I guess some folks feel like it's partisan, but it is partisan. I don't think you're trying to hide that it's partisan because, as you said before, states like Texas and Missouri and the current administration are not playing fair.
Correct. So these are temporary maps because this is for an emergency situation. And in 2030, the Citizens Redistricting Commission would take up their charge again and reevaluate the maps. Yes, it's a fair and proportional response to what Trump and the MAGA Republicans have already started doing. And had Trump and the Republicans not decided to go forward with looking for new congressional seats, like going to the governor of Texas and mandating that he redraw his maps, then this proposition in California never would have come to the voters. So this is a direct response to what Trump is doing, and it's extenuating circumstances for a situation that we never thought we would have to be in, and yet here we are.
So it seems like some of the arguments against Prop 50 are that it would be costly, that it would cost, I've seen different figures, 200 million, 300 million. So they're saying this would be a burden on the taxpayers. They're also saying that it would repeal part of the 2010 Voters First Act for Congress, which gave the power to draw California's congressional districts by an independent 14-member Citizens Redistricting Commission. So what is your response to the cost to taxpayers and the fact that it would repeal part of this 2010 Voters First Act for Congress?
So it doesn't actually repeal it. It just temporarily suspends it. Again, in 2030, the Redistricting Commission will come back and resume its work. And then as far as the cost to taxpayers, again, I said it's time to fight fire with fire. And so I think $200 million is a large amount of money. And what we are hoping to accomplish with this is that people within the state of California and nationwide will actually not continue to lose more services, Medi-Cal, Medicaid,
food stamps.
Exactly, food stamps, SNAP.
That's not even talking about the tariffs that are just increasing prices for consumers.
Everything.
Yeah. So what's the cost really in the bigger picture is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, this is California's opportunity to lead and to really help the rest of the country and other states. And, so we have this opportunity. We're able to do this. So now is the time, and let's go.
Okay, I'm going to present a few more of the arguments against Prop 50 and get your response before we open up the phone lines. So from Reform California, I have no idea who the heck this is. Sorry, I should probably know. They claim to be a grassroots political movement led by somebody named Carl DeMaio. I don't, maybe you know what this organization is, but their top 5 reasons for voting, they say people should vote no on Prop 50, that one of them says allows politicians to seize power from citizens, hands the power back to politicians to rig the system by drawing districts safe for their cronies and guaranteeing their re-election. That's not democracy, that's entrenchment. What's your response to that claim?
Okay, well, Carl DeMaio is a California Assembly member, and he is one of Trump's most vocal allies in California.
Okay.
He supports mass immigration roundups, unlawful tariffs, and withholding California emergency response money. He terrorizes Democratic Assembly members. He posts on Facebook to all of his followers how rigged and awful everything in the state is. So he's a known entity, and he's also a known loyalist. So this is what we expected from him.
Mm-hmm. And so he's a California State Assembly member from San Diego. That's my hometown. How embarrassing. Anyway, so that's enlightening. Thank you. Then the second argument that is presented essentially by Carl DeMaio, is that how you say his name?
Yes.
Is that that it permits corrupt backroom deals. Instead of a bipartisan group of citizens drawn from everyday Californians drawing the district lines over a year with public hearings and input, Sacramento politicians rushed Prop 50's maps through the state legislature in just 1 week with new districts that only benefit their own careers. That's kind of the same argument.
Well, and also...
Like he's just repeating the same argument.
And also, I do want to point out that in our voter guide, you can see the new maps. You can see the existing maps, and then you can see the new maps. And so you can compare them yourselves. And so we all have the opportunity to look at our districts and see what we think of them. And so backdoor deal and non-transparent maps, no. We get them in the voter guide.
Well, it was like, again, it was very enlightening when you told me who this man is. So I don't expect anything that he's putting out to be particularly honest. So we already talked about the $200 million and where are we going to spend the money? You know, bigger picture here. Like we're seeing so many cuts to essential services and the tariffs and everything else that's happening to the economy. So where are we going to spend it? You know, $200 million doesn't sound like that much, or $300 million, whatever it is, between, you know, for the state of California when you're looking at the whole country and what's going on right now. So number 5, their fifth argument against it is that it's not temporary, that it will be permanent. And it says here, just like, quote, temporary taxes, fees, and regulations, once politicians have power, they never give it back. Letting Sacramento politicians, quote, temporarily kill off a piece of democracy sets a dangerous precedent that could be used by future politicians to undermine constitutional safeguards. Oh, I guess that Carl cares quite a bit about democracy, huh?
Oh, all of a sudden. All of a sudden.
So what is your response, though, to it not being temporary, according to him?
Well, again, these, you know, it says within the proposition that the maps expire in 2030 and that the commission would then again take up its work. We don't know what the commission will do at that time, but we are going back to our commission structure, and we have to trust and empower them to do the work that they are supposed to do. And because it is within the proposition that we would return to our commission structure, we have to honor that. And so this is not permanent maps that we're like lying about or trying to hide and cover up.
So in 2030, the it would return to the California Citizens Redistricting Commission being responsible for continuing the work of drawing the state's congressional district maps. It would return to that status quo. Okay.
Yes.
So let's return to the final argument I wanted to present you from the Reform California website, which again, we've already talked about. It's something that was started by what's his name? Carl DeMaio, who is a Republican state congressman from San Diego, California. And he's one of the main opponents in the state to Prop 50. And as Jenni mentioned, he's vastly pro-Trump.
He's
MAGA,
one of Trump's most vocal allies in California. We'll
That's
just
go
with that.
Nice way of saying
it.
Okay, so we'll return to the last anti-50 point in a moment, but we have a caller, and I want to put him on the air. Hello, caller. You have a question or a comment for my guest, Jenni Veitch-Olson?
I do have a comment.
Great, thank you.
Yes, I support your guest because I support Prop 50. I was saddened to see Arnold Schwarzenegger on commercials saying to vote against it.
That is too bad.
Yeah, so I thought he was better than that. But anyway, he is a Republican after all. But I do have a comment about, you said we could comment about our concerns for our country.
Yeah, go ahead. That's what this is all about after all, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, of course, as many progressives, I was concerned about the country with the last election. And I wasn't a supporter of the Democrats, but I knew it was better than fascism. Unfortunately, other progressives didn't feel that way. Third-party progressives and hardliners like Medea Benjamin of Cold Pink, who got on KPFA and said, don't vote for Biden or Harris because they're just as corrupt and criminal as Trump. So what happened was that because of their, support of Palestinians, and I was also a supporter of the Palestinians and protested against the genocide, but they were willing to throw LGBTQ people, trans people under the bus, immigrants under the bus, and so I hold them with all the other people I hold responsible. I hold these people responsible. I call them the spoiled child syndrome people. If we can't have everything, we don't want anything. This is a problem, and we're going to have this problem even with the next election coming up until these progressives feel that their ideological position, instead of voting strategically, they vote ideologically, and until they feel that being effective is as important as being right, we're not going to get anywhere.
Well, thank you for your comment. I didn't know that about Medea Benjamin, so thank you for enlightening me on that. I didn't have any idea about that. So anyway, thank you, caller. I appreciate that. So here's another argument from Carl DeMaio, the MAGA loyalist, who is from out of San Diego, state congressman here in California. He has a website, Reform California. So another argument that he makes is that this Prop 50 would eliminate fair and competitive districts, allowing gerrymandering, which disproportionately harms communities of color. He cares so much about that. Reduces competitive elections and erodes accountability. Strips constitutional protections that currently ensure communities are kept whole and that maps are not drawn to favor political parties or incumbents. I want to get your response to that, but I noticed in the Cal Matters article, again, on the Cal Matters website, it's titled, Does Prop 50 Divide California Communities? Depends on how you measure it. They state that both proponents and opponents of Prop 50 claim that their favored map, the existing one, or the proposed new one that would be under Prop 50 if it passes, keeps cities and counties together more often, resulting in better representation by keeping similar communities under the same Congress member. So which is it? It depends on how you look at it, and each side phrases their claims differently. The proponents of Prop 50 are correct in saying their map splits fewer total cities and counties into 2 or more districts than the current map. That's according to analysis of both maps by Haystack DNA, the firm that assisted with the nonpartisan redistricting in 2021. And it also goes on to say an analysis by the Nonpartisan Public Policy Institute of California found the difference to be negligible. So what is your thought on this claim by Reform California or Carl DeMaio that this would disproportionately harm communities of color, reduce competitive elections, and erode accountability?
I think that's entirely untrue. I think that when we are keeping cities and counties together within districts, we actually do see greater representation. The work I do professionally is to help Democratic women run for local and statewide office and get elected. And we are actually focusing on the new American majority and truly representing California in elected office that represents our population. And so these new maps, I shared at the top of the hour that we have an opportunity to truly have more diverse representation in Congress for the state of California as a result of these maps. And I think that ultimately makes for better governance for the people of California and also, the nation as a whole. And so I think one of the great strengths of these new districts is that we will see more diverse candidates, and as a result, hopefully, we will see more diverse Congress members because those candidates will be winning these races. So I absolutely believe that these new maps actually create more representation, not diminish representation.
Okay. This is Talk of the Bay. I'm your host, George Cadman. I'm speaking with Jenni Veitch-Olson, again, the chair of the Santa Cruz County Democratic Central Committee. And you're welcome to call in at 831-900-5773 if you have a comment or a question for my guest. You want to make a comment about Prop 50, which is on the ballot. And people are voting now on that, right? Because everyone's received their ballots in the mail. Is there going to be polls? It's a stupid question, but are the polls going to be open for this, or is this all mail-in voting?
Yes. So you can return your ballot to any of the ballot boxes that are placed throughout the county. You can also return it by mail, but please drop it in the mail by October 31st so that there's enough time to have it postmarked and received by Election Day. And voting centers will open for early in-person voting on October 25th, which is just next week, and so right around the corner. So yes, if you like to vote in person, you can do that, as well as drop off your mail-in ballot.
So another argument that I saw, and I think you may have already addressed this, so forgive me, but one of the other claims made by folks opposing Prop 50 is that it would change the California Constitution and replace the voter-approved nonpartisan California Citizens Redistricting Commission. Did you already respond to that?
Yeah, it temporarily suspends it until 2030, but it does not repeal and replace.
Okay. All right. So where should people go if they want good information about Prop 50? Because there's a couple of websites that are, as we've been sharing, spouting some misinformation.
Absolutely. So the actual website for yes on Prop 50 is stopelectionrigging.com, and you can find all the information about the proposition there, including who's supporting this ballot measure. And I just want to quickly highlight that.
Good, yeah.
Because we're just going to start with President Barack Obama. And then this is put forward by California Governor Gavin Newsom. We have California Democratic Congress members, including all current House Democratic leaders, Hakeem Jeffries, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, California Senators Alex Padilla and Adam Schiff. We have labor unions, including the California Federation of Labor, the California Teachers Association, and SEIU California State Council, Planned Parenthood affiliates of California, and a long list.
Yeah, I'm looking at a few here. Bernie Sanders supports Prop 50, Katie Porter,
AOC has
Elizabeth
been campaigning.
Warren,
Yep.
Beto O'Rourke, Netflix CEO Reed Hastings, Stephen Colbert.
Well, people listen to him, so
Yeah,
I'll
no.
take it.
Looks like we have another caller here. We'll put you on the air in just a moment here. So can you remind me of the website for folks that want to get information about Prop 50?
Sure, it's stopelectionrigging.com.
Stopelectionrigging.com. Great. We got somebody on line one. Let's put them on the air. Hello, caller. Do you have a question or a comment for my guest, Jenni Veitch-Olson?
Hi, George. It's Suki. I'm just calling
Oh, thank you.
because I've been enjoying this conversation, and I wondered if your guests would be willing to speak about the wider problem of gerrymandering and whether there's been talk in amongst anyone. I mean, obviously right now Republicans are going the wrong direction, but about what might be a solution to this, because it's actually hurting people in Republican areas just as much as Democratic areas, because gerrymandering tends to lead to more extreme candidates who don't represent the core of American voters. So does your guest have any comment about possible bigger fixes to this problem in the future?
Thank you, Suki. That's a great question about an extremely complicated issue, as you elucidated. And, I believe that independent redistricting commissions are actually a way that nationally we can try to do the best job we can to make districts that are representative. I ideally would love for every state to have independent redistricting commissions. I don't know if that's possible. And so I am hesitant to say that we can kind of redistrict our way out of this mess. But I do think that we need to have a conversation about national redistricting reform, and even perhaps maybe move towards like a national constitutional amendment that would make independent redistricting the way that every state does it, so that we have a fighting chance to make more representative districts. But you're absolutely right that the gerrymandering does tend to favor the extremes, and so the middle, which is the bulk of us, can often get overlooked, and that really doesn't help anyone. So thanks for your comment and your question. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, thanks, caller. Really appreciate that. I want to mention again the website, stopelectionrigging.com, stopelectionrigging.com. I noticed just scrolling through that website, in addition to the arguments in favor of Prop 50, are the coalition of supporters, including the California Conference of Carpenters, the California Federation of Teachers, the California Nurses Association, a number of unions, etc., including, of course, some of the politicians and public figures that were mentioned. I see here on the website it says people can volunteer. Is that still possible this late in the game, or?
Absolutely. So if you click on the volunteer, I believe it'll take you to mobilize. But we are absolutely looking for phone bankers. And phone banking is when you just call voters and you ask them if they've returned their ballots, ask them if they're supportive of Prop 50, and basically just remind them that there is an election happening. The cool thing about phone banking now is that you can do it from the privacy of your own home.
You can do it on your cell phone from the park.
Exactly. You can do it from wherever you want because these apps are designed for your convenience in mind. So that is a great way to get involved. You can also sign up for canvassing your neighborhood. I want to give a big shout out to Swing Left Santa Cruz. They have really risen to the occasion in terms of canvassing for Yes on Prop 50. They've gone out every weekend throughout the county. So they've been up here in Santa Cruz, down in Aptos and Watsonville as well. And they are doing the good old-fashioned knocking on doors and telling people about the election. And so that is also something that you can find on Mobilize. And like I said, right now is the crunch time. It's really time to remind people to get out to vote. And so, yeah, if you have a couple hours to make calls or if you like walking around your neighborhood, please do it.
Great. We have another caller. Hello, caller. You're on the air with my guest, Jenni Veitch-Olson. Do you have a question or a comment?
I have a question and a comment.
Okay, great.
In as much as if you clarify this for me, my understanding that one of the motivations for Prop 50 coming up is because what Texas did with their redistricting. Is that true or?
That absolutely is. So President Trump went to Governor Abbott in the state of Texas and said, redraw your lines so that we, the Republicans, get 5 more seats in Texas. And Governor Abbott literally redrew the Texas congressional districts and then signed it as an executive order, and it went into effect. So there was absolutely no participation by voters in Texas on the redrawing of their lines.
Well, with that in mind, what Governor Newsom did was necessary.
Absolutely.
To bring up Proposition 50. So I'm wholeheartedly behind 50 and will vote yes. And then a comment. What is meant by nonpartisan, independent boards to make up redistricting? In as much as how can you be nonpartisan and independent and be a citizen in our society?
Listen, good point.
It is an excellent point, and I do know that when you apply to be on the Citizen Redistricting Commission, one of the things that is asked of you and that your application is then evaluated by is, can you be as non-partisan as possible in order to do the good work of trying to make representative districts
fair districts.
Fair districts. Yeah. Thank you.
Representative fair districts. Yeah. Well, thank you for your call. We have another caller, so we're going to let you go. But thank you so much. So we're going to bring the next caller on. Hello, caller.
Is that me?
I believe so.
Well, thank you very much. My question is this, and I don't know, I tuned into the show a little bit late, and perhaps you've already addressed it. And I have to confess, I can't recall whether it was Ralph Nader or Amy Goodman who are my main sources, but what I've been given to understand is that, and I'm not certainly arguing against Prop 50, but that given the stranglehold that Trump has on the Republican Party and this campaign to gerrymander their districts is spreading among the states where they control it, that we're totally outnumbered, that there aren't enough Democratic legislatures to counteract the number of seats that can be switched. And it's not that I'm arguing against 50, but I'm wondering what the hope is, honestly.
You think it's going to fall short even if it passes, is what you're saying?
Well, that even if I understand what I recall hearing was that if more democratically led state legislatures do a similar thing to what Gavin Newsom is doing, that the Republican legislatures can gerrymander more.
I see. So what you're saying is it's setting off a chain reaction, and in the end, the Democrats will lose because they're outnumbered. Is that what you're saying?
I guess that's the surmise I have.
All right. So let's get Jenni Veitch-Olson's response to that question.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard a similar argument as well, and what I would say is we have to give it a fighting chance right now because we don't know if those Republican-led states, if they are all going to go down this same path as well. And we are also banking on the fact that other Democratic-led states are going to follow suit and follow what California did. And so we have to give this a fighting chance right now, because if we don't, we're simply giving up and giving in. And I'm not willing to do this. And Governor Newsom's not willing to do this. And Democrats are not willing to do this. And so I'll say it again. We need to fight fire with fire. And that's what we're doing with Prop 50 right now. And so this is the first step, and there will most likely be following steps. But come hell or high water, we need to do it right now, and we need to start the process of literally fighting back and fighting for our democracy. So I'm willing to take that risk.
I want to turn back to the website, stopelectionrigging.com. We were talking about how people still have time to go door to door, to phone bank. And I'm noticing on the website, in addition to a place where you can volunteer, where you can sign up to volunteer to do those things, you can also you can add your name to Defend Democracy by doing a citizen's endorsement there. You can also check your voter registration if you're concerned that perhaps it's lapsed or you just want to make sure that it's current. You can do that on stopelectionrigging.com. You can also share about Prop 50 on social media with some of the, I don't know what you want to call them. You can share it on any social media. There's these little icons that are very colorful and explain what Prop 50 is and that you support it. You can put that on your social media. There's downloadable printable signs that you can put in your yard, etc. So again, that's stopelectionrigging.com. So we have just a few minutes left. And again, if you want to call in to Talk of the Bay, 831-900-5773. But if we don't get a call, I just want to give you, Jenni Veitch-Olson, the last couple of moments here to defend Prop 50, explain again why it's so important and why it's critical in your view that people turn out for the special election and support Prop 50.
Absolutely, George. Well, thanks so much for having me. It's really been a pleasure to talk to you about, on Prop 50. And Proposition 50 is extremely important, and it's California's opportunity to stop election rigging and the unprecedented power grab to steal congressional seats that Donald Trump and the Texas Republicans have already started. And it's their attempt to rig the 2026 election before it even begins. And so California has an opportunity to redraw our congressional district lines.
Temporarily.
Yes, temporarily. Redraw the lines in order to increase the number of Democratic-held seats in the state of California.
In U.S. Congress.
Yes.
House of Representatives.
Absolutely. This is temporary. These maps would expire in 2030 and go back to the California Citizens Redistricting Commission. But the reason why we are doing this in this moment is because the Republicans aren't playing fair and they aren't fighting fair, and we are going to fight fire with fire. And so this is a proportional response to what MAGA Republicans are doing nationwide, and California is doing our part and leading the effort to stop Trump from getting 2 more years of unlimited power. And so we can support this now, and we can pass Prop 50. And then when the 2030 census happens and we go through that process, the California Citizen Redistricting Commission will go back and do their regular job, and it will continue on as usual.
And if you want to find out more information, stopelectionrigging.com. Thank you very, very much for joining me today on Talk of the Bay, Jenni Veitch-Olson. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening.